That's insane. I know a lot about the Christmas Story, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. The tour is amazing. Anyone who's in Cleveland should come here. The Christmas Story is a movie that was made in 1980. Well, it was released in 1983. I actually saw the movie at the movie theater, and I saw it twice. I thought it was so amazing. I went and seen it twice. The movie was more or less a bomb, box office wise, and later, many years later, TBS had acquired the film when they bought MGM Studios. That's Turner Broadcasting Network, and they would play it on TV 24 hours a day. It became a cult classic, and for those people who don't understand what a cult classic is, it typically means that the movie wasn't successful at the theater, but later on people caught on to how amazing the movie was, and now it's a cult classic. A Christmas Story was directed by Bob Clark. He was made famous for directing a movie called Porky's. He, as a kid, used to listen to Gene Shepard, who would do these radio shows, just like Ralphie was in the movie, listening to the radio, because that's what you did back in the 1920s and 30s. Those series of him telling his life story through his perspective as a little child and growing up in Indiana would be a fantastic movie, and Bob Clark put that together. He got together with Gene Shepard. Bob Clark went to MGM to try to get him to make the movie. They didn't want to make the movie. He agreed to direct Porky's 2 for them if they would fund A Christmas Story, and the rest is history. And when you go back and you look at the cast, the glaring issue is Jack Nicholson. He wanted a little bit too much money, so they ended up casting Darren McGavin. I think that most people would agree that Darren McGavin, he makes the movie. He's the funniest character in the movie, I would say. I would think everybody would agree. Darren McGavin is buried in Hollywood Forever Cemetery. I've actually been to his grave. And his wife in the movie, Melinda, she just passed away in 2023. She actually had the opportunity to reprise the role when Peter Billingsley made A Christmas Story Christmas, but she was retired, and oddly enough, she died not long after the movie came out. A Christmas Story Christmas is a really nice sequel. It's very endearing, a lot of the same laughs. So I've always wanted to come here to the museum, to the house. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of history of the house and a little bit of history of the movie as well, because I've seen some videos on it, and people genuinely, not all, but some don't understand that this house was actually built in 1970. They did not actually film the movie inside this house. They filmed the movie in St. Catharines, Canada, in a soundstage, and they film a lot of movies there, and then they also filmed a lot of it around Toronto. So let me explain here in Cleveland what was actually filmed for A Christmas Story. The exteriors of this house, the backyard, the scene with the BB gun shooting Bart, the kids walking up and down the street, as you can see right here, okay? You can also see the famous steel mill, and you can see it in the background. There's nothing but steel mills, and that's why they chose this house, was because this house is perfectly located directly in front of, as a background, the steel mills, and that's why it was filmed here. But Canada, would do a lot of, they were in the infancy stages of, giving tax credits to films and things of this nature. So a lot of the films were filmed in Canada. So in St. Catharines, Canada, they built the sound stages. The school was in St. Catharines. The fire trunk, the flagpole, which by the way was actually just PVC pipe with a vacuum that sucked his tongue on. But all of that was filmed in St. Catharines, Canada. And if you're doing the filming locations for this movie, you would go to St. Catharines, Canada, and you could see where the school is. You could see a lot of the scenes where they walk around the school, the playground. The fire truck is actually on display there. And the actual studio soundstage where they actually built the house is all there. And that's how all of the costumes were acquired. If you really love The Christmas Story, you should watch a documentary called Finding Ralphie. They're the ones who found all the costumes and acquired them. And now most of them are in this house on display in their museum, except for the bunny suit, which Peter Billingsley happens to have, and he also has the original BB gun. People wonder often what year was this movie set in, and it's actually 1939. But if you look at Peter Billingsley, Ralphie's decoder ring, it says 1940, and the old man references a football game between the Green Bay Packers and Chicago Bears. The reference is to a game that actually played in 1941. But in the kitchen, you can clearly see there's a calendar in the movie, and it says 1939. The other thing that gives it away as 1939 is the fact that The Wizard of Oz, the original Wizard of Oz, was made by MGM. They also made A Christmas Story. And the original Wizard of Oz was released in 1939. And you can clearly see the Wizard of Oz in the parade. You can see them inside of the Higbee's department store. And I think that was very clearly done on the part of MGM Studios. They wanted the Wizard of Oz to be in the film. They didn't really want the news and things like that, to be about World War II. World War II actually started in September 1939, but it was actually what they would call a phony war from then till April of 1940. So I think they tried to set it purposely prior to World War II as well, and I think that's one of the reasons. And so there you have it. There's a few facts, and we're going to go inside. There's 2 bedrooms upstairs. One of them has like a keypadded lock on it. You can't go in it. The reason is because that is actually this place is an Airbnb. You can rent this 364 days or 362 days a year. One person can rent it and sleep in the Christmas Story house, roam the house, the whole shebang, and there's one modern bedroom with a working bathroom inside. The Bumpus's house, which is over there, is also an Airbnb, and you can rent that and stay in there as well. But I think most people would want to stay over here in the Christmas Story house. One of these days I might rent it, but they do have one modern bedroom inside, and that's why. So when you go in the house on the tour and you go upstairs, you'll see that there's one room you can't go in, and that's because it's a modern bedroom with a bathroom, and it's an Airbnb. The house was actually put up for sale on eBay. The person who makes the leg lamps, they were making recreations of the leg lamps, and he was selling them. He bought the house and did all of this work to turn it into a museum. This house is taking on a life of its own, like the movie, kind of like Elvis, like you can tour Elvis's house. Who would have thought that this low budget movie that was not successful at the box office would be the phenomenon that it is today? And I credit these people who run the Christmas Story house because they help really push the brand to legacy level. Bumpus house, and you see the dogs. That is an Airbnb, and you can rent it. And then everything between there and here would be all the littered cars and everything else. And if we walk back here, which I'm going to right now, we're going to walk back here and we're going to see there's Ralphie's house right there. And that is the authentic real shed. And I think one of the big differences is the back fence probably would have been a little closer. And you can see that in the movie because you can see where the shed is to where the fence is today. And you'll see that it wasn't as far back, at least in the movie. But there's the authentic shed. And in here is exactly why Gene Shepard himself picked this house, as him and Bob Clark were running around in Cleveland trying to find a place to film the movie. That's the steel mill. And everything behind it is a steel mill. And when you watch the movie, you can actually see that steel mill in the backdrop of the house, which is right up there. And Black Bart and all of his cohorts, would be hopping over the fence and so on and so forth. Right here, this is the exact location. But look at this, it's kind of interesting. It's a big hill, and look at the kitty cat over there. You see the cat? A stray cat, probably. And that's one of the things too why I'm pretty sure that the fence was a little closer in than where it is now, but that's okay because they would have had stunt performers and everything on this side. And look at that, it's a big giant old cliff. You would have fallen right down and been killed. But they did actually film all of those scenes here. Now it is possible, and they probably did film a handful of scenes little pickup shots and stuff inside the house, especially where the old man is in the street and the leg lamp is in the window. So they actually rented this house, or they may have purchased it for like $20,000, but they definitely filmed some of the scenes inside, because the leg lamp scene was filmed here, obviously, where he's standing in the street and looking at the house. Again, all the exterior shots were filmed here. Maybe a handful of little pickup shots inside, but for the most part it wasn't. And I also think, like, when Ralphie, like, and he's looking out these windows and stuff like that, that was obviously filmed here as well. Now we're gonna go into the house. We're gonna check it out and see what we see. But look, this has become like a whole entire complex. It's crazy. The Bumpus house is an Airbnb. Ralphie's house has been totally gutted. And because that's what the guy did, he gutted it and he tried to recreate the exact floor layout of the movie. Amazing. This is the actual house right here that was used for all the exterior shots. And in the back, you see the shed right there. That was actually in the movie, and they filmed the Black Bart scene. Then they, of course, filmed some scenes walking up and down the street. And then that's the Bumpus' house, and then all the cars and everything would have been in the center. But that was pretty much the only thing that was shot here, other than going to Cleveland. And the shots, you can also see the steel factory in the back. We are inside the Christmas Story house, and you see the radio right there that Ralphie listened to for his decoder pin. And you got the newspaper here. Oh, you got the crossword puzzle, of course. Now, I want to tell everybody that I actually seen the movie in the movie theater. That's how old I am. And look at this. Now, the movie was not actually filmed inside of this house. Look at it. The star is crooked. Yeah, it's like wild to be in here. And they have done such a great job of like getting a lot of the antique decor, furniture, and just trying to make it seem as much as possible like the movie. And here's the door where the Bumpuses would have stole the turkey. And look, and you can see that this is not real, but there's the vent that she would have changed. Now you can see this is just screwed on the wall. It's not real. But in the movie, it actually would have moved. Because again, the movie was different. The house was not used. And look, here's the leg lamp. A major award. And back in the old days, houses had push buttons like this. And we're gonna go upstairs and check it out. Okay, now we're going upstairs. And here's Ralphie's room right here. And the wallpaper is perfect. And look, you can look out on the street. And that is their museum. And that's the fire truck from the movie. And they have a gift store. Look at Ralphie's room. And here is his theme. That's so funny, his theme. And look, you got Red Ryder books. King Kong. And then we've got a sewing room. And here's the bathroom where Ralphie would have had to put. And then here's the phone where she called to let Ralphie's friend know, because Ralphie lied and said that he heard the word fudge, not fudge, he heard the word fudge from his, not from his old man, but actually his friend. And his friend got whooped by the mom, and that would have been the phone. Well, not the real phone, but still. Everything looks very, very authentic. And here's the stairs that in the movie Ralphie would have walked down. You would have seen him right there as his parents laughed at him as he stood right here and made fun of him because he was wearing the bunny suit. And then he ran back up the stairs right into his room to get out of it. And check it out. So cool. And here's a really nice touch. The hat from the department store. There's Ralphie's bunny hat, and then there's the old man's hat. And if you look over here, there's Flick's hat right there. Very cool. And then over here, you have a family portrait. It's really nostalgic to be here. It makes you feel like you're 10 years old again. It really does. Now you can just imagine Ralphie coming down those steps in that bunny suit. And there's the plugs. And those are real vintage cords. You can tell they're all twined together. And that's the actual kind of plug they would have had back in the 30s and the 40s. Not like they are today. And here's the kitchen where she would have made her turkey, and it would have been sitting right there in the movie. And look at the detail that they put into everything. It's amazing. And this is this area where the scene where Ralphie is shooting, and that is the real shed. And this is why they picked the house, because the steel mill is in the backyard. Check that out. Now you're also going to see right there, that's the replica sign of the metal sign that Ralphie would have shot with his BB gun that bounced back and hit him in the eye. And then you can see Ralphie would have been standing right there, and his family shooting the BB gun. And shooting Black Barn as we walk around the side of the house. The old man's car would have been parked right here. All the Bumpus's cars over there. Part of your tour of the house includes a walk through a museum. See, there's the house over there, the museum. And then they bought this house here. And by the way, I want to mention that that house right there was built in the 1970s. It is not a 1940, 1939 type of house, but you know, all little details. Now we'll go into the museum and see what is inside. Okay, so now we're in the museum, and this is one of the BB guns that was used. There were 6 of them. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the movie. So there's Melinda Dillon. She just passed away in 2023. And you can see a photo of her from the movie wearing that outfit right there. And I'm going to tell you how they got that outfit. Before YouTube became a thing, a couple loved this movie more than anything. And they made a documentary that they sold on the internet called Finding Ralphie. Now this is Gene Shepard right here. Okay, he's the one who wrote these little stories and did these radio shows that Bob Clark heard. Bob Clark is the director. This is Gene Shepard, died in 1999. But you can see he had a little part in the movie. He was standing in line at Higbee's. And you can see right here the outfits, and then you can actually see right here is the shed, and then right there you see the steel mill in the background, so you know for a fact that those scenes were actually filmed here at the house. And there's their outfits. But here's how they got them. When they were trying to figure out where the movie was filmed and trying to find all the filming locations, which took them years to make this documentary, they discovered where the house was built, you know, in a soundstage. And it turned out that they got a tour of it, and guess what? They had all the original costumes, and they bought them. And so they owned them. And then after the Christmas Story house was opened, they brought it to the attention of the person who restored this house to look like it does today. They actually found them at the real location where the movie was filmed. But there's the mailbox, the mittens, the shoes, and all of this stuff was inside this a storage facility where they rented all of these costumes. So they were all rented from a prop house, because they have prop houses located near wherever there happens to be places where you do filming, where you build sound stages. And guess what? They had all of this stuff, so they bought it. Now, I'm sure that place, when you think about it in hindsight, wouldn't have sold it, but they did. But I think it's fantastic that the people who made the documentary, Finding Ralphie, grabbed all of these costumes. See, there's the old man's jacket. And they were so keenly aware of which costumes. Can you believe that? And here's some pictures. And all this stuff is real. The bib is real. Everything's real. And when they were inside of this prop house, warehouse, they were going through everything. And they were able to acquire all of the real props, or the costumes from the movie. Now, for people who don't know, there's a lot of scenes cut out of him having more fantasy scenes, and this is one of them here. And it didn't make the movie, and you see it's a Flash Gordon scene, but they were able to get the costumes nonetheless. And you can see him right there. I don't know if they'll ever do a director's cut. Not going to be a director's cut because the director's gone. But I mean, just like where they include all those scenes. And here's the costumes from the Chop Suey Palace. This is actually in Toronto. And if you go there, they actually have a leg lamp in the window, even though it's not a Chop Suey place anymore. But they do have a leg lamp in the window. And there's Bob Clark. You got this Genie Award, not sure what that is. And there is teeth and pictures and fire hat. Now, I was told that the bunny costume, Ralphie himself actually has. He has that and the original BB gun that was used. And do you remember me telling you about the chalkboard? That's it right there. That is the actual board, and it was removed from Victoria's school. And it just so happened when they were making the documentary, Finding Ralphie, that they were renovating it. So they just made it just in time to save the actual chalkboard. And if you look over here, you'll see one of the pieces of the chalkboard here. And then that's the school right here. But that school now is, at least it was at the time they pulled the chalkboard out, it was renovated into a woman's shelter. Now look at this. You see Ralphie's outfit? There it is, right there. And there's his hat. There's his shoes. And there's his mitts. And that's his pajamas. And if you remember, there's another scene too where he's wearing this exact outfit right here. Peter Billingsley became a very successful producer. He was a co-producer on a movie that a lot of people know called Iron Man. And he also is like best friends with Vince Vaughn. And him and Vince Vaughn produced a sequel to this movie called A Christmas Story Christmas. And look right here. Look at the old man. Now, I've actually been to Darren McGavin's grave. He's buried right in front of Vampirella in Hollywood Forever Cemetery. He was also in a TV show that I really liked, where he was kind of like a supernatural detective. And then you see over here, there's a bunch of photos that they were taking at the time when Polaroids were really popular. And you can see right here some scenes that were filmed inside the movie. And these are scenes that were filmed in front of this house. There's pictures of Darren McGavin out in front of the house. There's Darren McGavin out in front of the house again. And right there, and there's Hickabees. When they made the movie, it was not actually in December, and you can see photos of here of them putting snow on the streets, and they had to do that every time they filmed here at the real house. Good old Cleveland Street. Now, over here is a replica of the fire truck that saved Flick when he had his tongue on the. That was actually filmed in Canada, a place called St. Catharines, and the real fire truck is still owned by the fire department, and you actually can see it. If you go do complete filming locations of Christmas Story, you would be able to go see that fire truck, and you could actually go to the school. And then here is the actual screen used car. There was two of them, but this was the one that was like seen on the outside. It's not the one Ralphie drove in, but this is the car that was used to drive around the block right there. Now, and over here you see the Christmas Story house. And if you look at the photos that you saw on the wall, you would see that a lot of the scenes where, you know, those gates would not have been there, but you would see the kids like walking down the street this direction. Now, one of the things that's really interesting as we head towards the gift shop, and I'm dying to see what all is in here, but this place reminds me of a place we did a video called Field of Screams, because I asked them, hey, don't all these neighbors all around, well, we bought all those houses. When you think about it, that thing became so popular that they started buying all the houses around it. That eliminates a lot of the problems with the neighbors. If you drive down the street, there's signs everywhere saying don't block driveways, don't block driveways. So it's probably a little bit of a hassle for people. But let's go check out this retail store. And of course, you're going to know that there's going to be a lot of leg lamps for sale. When you think about how insane this movie has become as a license for Warner Brothers, who actually bought TBS. So the movie was made by MGM Studios, later purchased by Turner Broadcasting Network, and Turner was later purchased by Warner Brothers. And there's no way they thought ever in a million years this would become a licensing gold mine. And look at this, we have a penny machine, and you can get these pennies made. I'm sure a lot of pennies go in there. Look at all this stuff. This is obviously not Christmas Story. And look at this. You have a Zoltar. But it's actually a penny machine. But it looks like a Zoltar. And then, you know, they have various like things that are not related to the Christmas Story. Grinch. They have an elf section over here. And there he is right there. I am a big fan of Christmas movies in general. And I think when you talk about the GOAT, like if we talk about the GOAT of golf movies, I would go with Caddyshack. Some people will go with Happy Gilmore. You know, and the list goes on. But what is the GOAT of Christmas movies? From a licensing standpoint, that probably would say it all. And it probably would be Christmas Story. But if it was me and I had to say what is my favorite Christmas movie of all time, it would probably be Christmas Vacation. And then I would say A Christmas Story would be second. There's so many good ones when it comes to Christmas. Now, I'm going to tell you an interesting fact about these Red Ryder BB guns. The building that I own in St. Louis, where St. Louis Escape is at currently, right next door to the Darkness, is where these were made. So our building was the BB gun factory. That's where they made BB guns. And when we were building the St. Louis Escape, we had to remove all the equipment that made BB guns. Believe it or not, it was still all there. And look at that, a Ralphie pink bunny Christmas tree. And then look at this. I mean, this movie has just become an absolute juggernaut. The crazy part is it's a movie that just didn't succeed at the box office. And here it is, a major licensing. And if you're not aware, Netflix is now trying to purchase Warner Brothers. So now they will actually own the movie Christmas Story. And who hasn't seen these? And I'm pretty sure there's a Christmas Story Monopoly game, but I've actually played this game and happen to own it because I'm a huge fan of the Christmas Story. Look at that, the old man with the leg lamp. When you think about the most iconic things about the movie, I think there's probably two things that stand out the most. And I think the number one is the leg lamp. I think that's number one. The BB gun, obviously, and Ralphie's bunny suit. Those would be like the three biggest. But I would say the thing that really people know the most about would be the old man's award, the leg lamp. We actually have one of these for sale in our retail store at the Darkness, and we actually have one on display in the escape room itself, because they've really become, cultish, insanely cool, retro memorabilia, iconic Americana. I mean, would probably be the best word, Americana. So not everything's Christmas Story, but it's really Christmas. And here's Christmas ornaments. There's Ralphie. There's his brother Randy. There's the flagpole. I would say the flagpole would be in there too. That's what makes a successful movie, when there's iconic moments in movies, and it's really hard to pinpoint what all the best ones are. Is it the fudge scene? Is it putting your Santa saying ho 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 and kicking him down the slide? Is it the flagpole? Is it the leg lamp? There's just so many. And there you go. There's the gift store. Now, I would highly suggest anyone, and look at this. They actually there's a Lego of the Christmas Story house. That's crazy. And there it is right there. Totally crazy. And then, of course, they have a lot of ugly sweaters and plushies. That's insane. And now that I think about it, I think the founding Ralphie people, that they're the ones who got the bunny suit. I think they're the ones who gave it to Peter Billingsley directly. And then they donated or sold to this museum the rest of it. It's been a dream of mine to actually come here. It's a kind of a bucket list thing for me. And I'm so happy that I came and was able to share it with you. Now I'm going to put another thing on my bucket list, and that's going to be to Airbnb out the Christmas Story house and actually stay in it all night long. I think that would be amazing. And I think in the future I would like to do filming locations, because it's just so interesting. Okay, so let me show you something. They would have been standing right there, and this would have been the parade route of when the Wizard of Oz and everything is coming through. All of this right here. Now, you know how you can tell, because they're standing in front of windows, and those would have been the windows right there. So the window that Ralphie would have looked in would have been right there. Now, right here is where the family is walking up to see Ralphie. Now, look at this picture right here. You see those little sundials? That's what's right up there on those pillars up there. The sundials. They're on every single pillar. And when they walk from that direction, and you can see, this is it right here. They walk from that direction right here to the door, and you'll see right here is where Ralphie's was, the Santa display would have been right there. And then you'll see he falls into the foam, and then you see it right there. So you can see they walk over to the slide, which would put it right there. That's where the slide was in the Christmas Story. Clear as day. Now they have changed it. You can't identify a lot of stuff because they put in a drop ceiling, but that's where the slide would have been, right there. So I was 100% correct because I pulled up the movie to confirm where Ralphie was standing when he was looking in the Higgiby's window. And I'm going to confirm it by showing you the beginning of the movie. And do you see this building right here? That building right there is featured prominently in the movie, as are these two buildings right here, okay? These two buildings right here, now they didn't have those signs on it, but that building right there is predominantly featured in the film in the beginning of the scenes. Right there, you see that? And it's gonna pan down. You're gonna see this town square up here, and you're gonna see Higgiby's, and that's the town square, which is still here to this day. They're standing in front of this exact window, and you're gonna be able to see through this window, through the other window. And that's gonna tell you 100% that Ralphie was standing right here looking through that window. Those two buildings side by side, that's this, right here. And it panned down from here to here. And you see Ralphie standing exactly right here. And none of this would have been there looking through that window. And the window display would have been right here, folks. Right there. And then this is the town square where the parade would have happened. And as I pointed out, you see very predominantly this war monument over here without all these trees. These trees wouldn't have been here. Very predominantly, you see this war monument during the parade. You also see it at the beginning of the film when they're showing Ralphie looking in the Higgiby's window. So Higgiby's is technically in the film twice. Once at the beginning, and then once near the end when they go shopping and see Santa Claus. And that is exactly what you see. So that means that when they were filming the movie, right there in that corner is where the whole family would have been standing watching the parade. They would have been right there on that corner because you see directly into this building right here. And then that's the big tower building that's predominantly featured multiple times in the film. We're here at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery, which is probably the most famous cemetery in all of Hollywood. We're going to try to find the crypt of Darren McGavin, and they're saying that it's right behind this right here. Let's see if that's true. We're gonna walk behind there and check it out. And it is true, he's there. So if you're trying to find Darren McGavin or Vampiro, you can see it right there. Darren McGavin. There's the monument, the mausoleum. Okay, it's right here. Darren McGavin. We found him. Holy cow! The old man. This is kind of emotional. He brings joy to so many people every Christmas. Darren McGavin, May 7th, 1922 to February 25th, 2006, father, husband, actor. Enjoyed a wonderful journey. And there's the signature. Wow. So we visited the Christmas Story house, the museum. The only thing we didn't visit was all the filming locations in Toronto and around Toronto. But if you were to go to Toronto, you would be able to see the original fire truck. It's outside of Toronto, but you would see the original fire truck. You would see you could find the actual schoolhouse building. You actually could go right up to where the movies were filmed in St. Catherine and a studio. It's all up there in Toronto, pretty much everything. And so, but Cleveland had to fill in for Gene Shepard's town of Indiana because that's where he was from. So Cleveland, I believe, was picked because of its proximity to Toronto, where they filmed the majority of the film. Filming in Indiana, then moving the whole production up to Toronto would have been more expensive. This was a low-budget movie. It was a pet project for, at the time, a very successful director who directed Porky's. And like Gene Shepard, like who would have ever thought? But Bob Clark, it resonated with him, these stories that Gene Shepard would tell. And just so you know, Gene Shepard had a little cameo in the film. He was inside of Higgiby's. He was also the narrator. Now, when they made the sequel, A Christmas Story Christmas, that movie was actually filmed somewhere in Europe. It wasn't filmed here. That's gonna wrap up this video for The Christmas Story. It was really fun to come out here and do this video. I don't care if 5 people watch it. It was just fun for me to do it. It was fun to see it. And I can look back on it down the road. It was fun to see the Christmas Story house. I do think there's a lot of misconceptions that a lot of the film was filmed inside. It was actually a soundstage built in Toronto. Not Toronto, but St. Catherine, not far from Toronto. And so I believe that's why Cleveland was picked, to double up as a blue-collar town where Gene Shepard had grown up. And you know, when you think about the Christmas Story, it's really just a narration, somebody telling stories, because that's what Gene Shepard did. He told stories of his childhood with a little bit of comedy. He's telling a story of one Christmas that he wanted a BB gun. Who would have ever thought it would become the cult classic that it is today? Well, we're gonna sign off here. And we did everything we could do here. We did the house, we did the backyard, we also visited the museum, and the only other filming location in the whole entire movie that was actually in Cleveland. Now remember, the movie is supposed to be in Indiana, where Gene Shepard was from, but this blue-collar town doubled in for Indiana, and they specifically picked that house because it was the house right where the backyard is exactly the steel mill, to get that blue-collar feel to the movie. And look at this, they got a skating rink right here, an ice skating rink. Really pretty, right? Now, I'm just waiting for the witch and the Tin Man and Dorothy to come running down the street at any minute. So thanks for watching. I hope you had fun with this video. It was a lot of fun to see it, because I just love that movie. Until next time, Merry Christmas.
For scary videos and more, subscribe to our YouTube page, huntworld.com.